Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amita Rari, and coming up in today's newscast. Heavy morning clashes this morning in Jenin, trying to prevent yet another war. Meantime, President Isaac Herzog at the European Union Parliament giving an emotional speech for International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And finally, a taste of the Holy Land's finest expert with ILTV's Wine of the Week. We open with an IDF operation in Jenin to prevent a major terrorist attack. Reports indicate at least 13 Palestinians were killed while confronting troops attempting to arrest a senior terrorist. There was also clashes in Shuafat in Jerusalem. ILTV Steve Leibovitz reports.
The clashes began when security forces from the IDF, Border Police, and Yamam Special Police Forces conducted a counter-terrorism operation in the center of Jenin camp, attempting to apprehend a senior Islamic Jihad official planning a large terrorist attack. Terrorists opened fire, and 3 Palestinians were neutralized. 1 was arrested. During the operation, security forces surrounding the building came under fire by additional armed terrorists. The security forces responded, and there were additional casualties. There were no IDF injuries reported. Tensions are soaring in the West Bank as the IDF presses on with an anti-terror offensive mostly focused on northern Samaria. Jenin is widely seen as a hotbed of terrorist activity and has been the focus of many of the raids. Earlier, Israeli security forces entered the Shuafat refugee camp in Jerusalem to seal off the family apartment of Uday al-Tamimi, a Palestinian terrorist who killed IDF soldier Noel Azar and seriously wounded a guard at the Shuafat checkpoint in October of last year. Al-Tamimi was killed while attempting to commit another attack. Clashes erupted during the operation as Israeli forces were met by Palestinians throwing pipe bombs and Molotov cocktails. About 200 policemen and members of various forces were deployed during the operation. A masked Palestinian teenager was shot and killed during the clashes. Officers opened fire at the suspect, who appeared to be carrying a gun aimed at its forces. It turned out to be a dummy weapon.
And here with us to tell us more about the events evolving every minute now is former head of the military's prosecution office for Judea and Samaria, Lieutenant Colonel Reserves and attorney Maurice Hirsch. Maurice, so does the operation in Jenin signal a new offensive by Israel to counter terrorism in Jenin and northern Samaria?
I think that what we're seeing really is understanding Jenin and understanding who the IDF is working against in Jenin and fighting against in Jenin is critical to understand the picture. Jenin is the fight against Palestinian Islamic Jihad. That means, simply translated, that is the fight against Iran. Iran has been trying, using its PIJ base in Jenin for months and months to carry out a massive terror attack against Israel, to undermine anything that's going on and to counter what's going on and what Israel is doing to Iran, both in Iran and in Syria. This is part of the wider war against Iran, this whole regional program that's going on, and that has to be taken within its context. The other fights that are going on, whether it be with the Lion's Den, part of the Lion's Den is a grouping of both Fatah terrorists together with Al-Aqsa Martyr brigades, together with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists, and they're really trying to undermine and really bring about a change in the security situation in the whole of Judea and Samaria, again with that push from both Iran on the one side and the Palestinian Authority on the other side. Those two vectors are really coming together in Jenin specifically.
Now, with so many Palestinian casualties, at least 13 since this morning, is it likely that Islamic Jihad in Gaza will fire rockets in response now? I mean, should we be preparing the bomb shelters now?
I think when we saw the last little spat in Gaza, the last time the Gazan terrorists tried to indiscriminately murder Jews with rockets, it was a result of the arrest of a senior Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist. I think that within Gaza itself, Hamas has full control. And if Hamas decides that Palestinian Islamic Jihad won't fire any missiles, then there won't be any missiles fired. Unfortunately, Hamas has no interest really in restraining Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It's convenient for them, based on past experience, to allow Palestinian Islamic Jihad to attack Israel, and for Hamas to say, well, it's not us. They're enjoying the statistics that we at Palestinian Media Watch exposed just a few days ago, where Hamas is enjoying the fact that just in 2022, 424,000 entries from Gaza into Israel. Hamas is playing that dual role of we're keeping the peace, but at the same time allowing terrorist organizations to continue on firing missiles at Israel from Gaza, and at the same time using those people coming into Israel in order to forward their terror attacks. And we saw that also with the big arrest from the Shin Bet just yesterday morning. That's another worrying, really, product of this ongoing terror war.
It's definitely worrying. Now, what more can you tell us from behind the scenes of this? I mean, I assume many more terror attacks are prevented every day. And where do you see it going from here, now in the near future, the coming days?
Well, so on the Palestinian side, I think we're just going to see a complete deterioration in the near future of anything that's happening there. Mahmoud Abbas, in his 19th year now of his first 4-year term, is losing control of the Palestinian terrorist organizations. He can no longer control his own Al-Aqsa Martyr brigades. And within the Palestinian arena itself, there is a lot of fighting going on, infighting and jostling for the day after Abbas. Who will replace him? Who will inherit, really, the tens of billions of dollars and shekels that the world pumps into the Palestinian Authority in the day after Mahmoud Abbas leaves the scene? That's the infighting that's going on between Hamas and Fatah within Fatah itself. I think that Israel needs to develop a clear policy as to what is going to happen the day after Abbas. And the sooner we implement that policy, I think the better it will be. We cannot allow a situation where Abbas dies and the Palestinians start fighting it out between themselves, because that will inevitably overflow into terrorism against Israel. That's how you take control in the Palestinian scene. You attack Israelis. The more Israelis you can murder, the more popular you become. That's something that Israel has to deal with, as I said, sooner rather than later.
We definitely cannot allow that. Maurice Hirsch, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In other news, Palestinian workers on strike in Judea and Samaria as financial freezes at UNRWA trickled down to worker salaries. Aaron Porras explains.
Trash piling high and dust settling thick as some 3,700 Palestinian workers across Judea and Samaria are striking for the third day in a row and are forcing schools, clinics, and even many municipal services to close. The workers demanding an across-the-board pay increase of some $280 per month from the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which largely pays their salaries. But UNRWA, the United Nations organization dedicated to Palestinian refugees and their descendants, is hit with a massive shortfall in its annual funding.
المفوض العام للأونروا أعلن اليوم من جنيف ميزانية الأونروا ب1.6 مليار دولار، منها حوالي 848 مليون دولار للميزانية المنتظمة التي تتعلق بالصحة والتعليم، وكل الدلائل تشير إلى أن هذا العام سيكون عام صعب. رأينا تقارير البنك الدولي وصندوق النقد الدولي والركود، وأيضا كما قلت ارتفاع أسعار المواد الغذائية، ازدياد احتياجات اللاجئين الفلسطينيين.
But in spite of these effects, UNRWA's financial difficulties coming on the heels of repeated controversy, leading many countries to either reduce or altogether freeze their donations. Among the more prevalent issues, UNRWA's consistent dalliance with terror organizations and hate-filled school curriculum. Critics long calling out UNRWA for hiring staff and educators who share anti-Semitic sentiments and support calls to martyrdom and incitement to violence against Israel and Jews, but also for even having housed weapons for Palestinian terror groups in its affiliated buildings, including in schools and medical facilities. Additionally, UNRWA as an organization is unique unto itself, as it's the only UN organization dedicated to a particular refugee crisis. All other refugees around the globe fall under jurisdiction of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, and their refugee status does not carry over to the next generation. The Palestinians, on the other hand, qualify for refugee status even if several generations removed from the original conflict, meaning the Palestinian refugee population's been exploding from an estimated 700,000 in 1948 to well over 5 million today. So all these things considered, many are questioning the necessity of supporting an organization that's seen as capitalizing on the plight of the Palestinians and perpetuating their conflict with Israel.